Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 22 My Team career mode. This is episode number 65 today for the Imola GP in Season 4. If you guys did miss the previous one at Monza, back-to-back races in Italy with our custom calendar for this one. And if you did miss that last one, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one, because that was the exact perfect Grand Prix that we needed following the disaster of 3 engine failures in a row. From Austria to Silverstone to the Belgium Grand Prix, the engine went up in smokes, and I was thinking, okay, this may be it. I think our season's over, maybe. We were 34 points off the championship lead, which was Alexander Albon, Lando Norris, and even Gasly got ahead of us in the standings. The other McLaren that wasn't really ever in the title kind of contention, but he was ahead of us as well. But we came back from that, and we replied with the best way we could by winning the Italian Grand Prix. It was a brilliant double podium by myself and Sebastian Vettel, who got a last sector overtake done to get the 3rd spot on the podium. Repsol HAAS showing that their pace is very much still there, with Schwartzman getting and splitting us in 2nd place. Strogovic had a tougher time, but those things happen. But Repsol HAAS continue their charge to try and chase after 4th in the Constructors' Championship. We did well to bounce back. We're back into 2nd place in the Championship in the Constructors' side of things, and in the Drivers' side as well, because we're 1 point ahead of Lando Norris and 8 off Alexander Albon. Still plenty of races to go, and after that, with Albon having a DNF himself, Lando, I think, ended up scoring 2 points. So it was literally the perfect response. We got the maximum points available, which is 25 plus 1 for the fastest lap. Albon 0 points, Lando only 2 points. Literally, the only way that would have been even better is if Lando scored 0 points. So that was absolutely exquisite. And it was the first time, really, I think, we got to truly show the speed of this car and how mighty we have made this car. You know, when it works, like I said at the end of the Italian Grand Prix, when it works, it's an absolute rocket ship. It's a dream to drive. It's definitely probably one of the best cars we've driven on this game in terms of the actual performance index level on the R&D chart. And we're going to continue to try and make it even better on the aerodynamic side of things. We do have a drag reduction update we could do, which could make it even better in a straight line with the maxed out engine power. But I have my eyes on the final ultimate upgrades on the front and rear downforce. Now, we don't quite have the R&D points to get those right now. We need about 5,000 to purchase both at the same time, which I think is important because you need that balance of front to rear, especially because both are ultimate upgrades. So if you have only one installed, that's going to really make a huge imbalance on the car. And we have those final other reliability upgrades that we have been purchasing for the last, 4 episodes, basically, on the energy store and the control electronics. Now, that's important because the energy store was the component that went at the Belgium Grand Prix. The MGUK was the one that went twice at Austria and Silverstone. We already had an upgrade on reliability on that part of the car anyway, which is why I was so surprised it went out twice, basically. But now we've brought pretty much, I think that's in total about 6 or 5 reliability upgrades in the last 3 to 4 episodes. So, and with obviously the Italian Grand Prix under our belt, a race win, no issues there. I hope that our reliability gremlins have maybe gone past us. I mean, to have more than 3 engine failures in a season would be quite extraordinary. And on the note of maybe focusing back on performance, our own engine supplier has brought their own upgrades, because on the engine side, you can do some upgrades yourselves, but the supplier can bring their own upgrades. So Audi have brought a wastegate actuator upgrade. I think that's going to affect on actual pure power as well. So the engine's got even better in that department. So that is so great, and we're going to need it, because going into this race weekend, when I tell you my jaw dropped to the floor when I saw how big of a leap Repsol HAAS have made. They are now ahead of, Red Bull have overtaken us with a tiny upgrade there, but Repsol HAAS the distance from them to the next team is pretty much covering most of the grid of all the midfield of Red Bull, ourselves, McLaren, Mercedes, the other Audi Sport team, even probably just about to Renault and Ferrari. So Repsol HAAS they have arrived already, and it looks like they want to make sure they can maybe get more wins than the one they got at the Belgium Grand Prix, because, yeah, that's a massively... I'm just so shocked, because I've never seen an AI team like this upgrade so aggressively and turn it around in one season. Remember, look at that chart when I zoom it back out. They were joint bottom of this R&D chart at Bahrain, and from then on, they have just... the sky's been the limit for them, so it's been insane. But we've had also plenty of other upgrades for McLaren, Mercedes, Audi Sport, Renault, Ferrari, Porsche, Williams have made a huge leap as they try and bridge the gap to Ferrari and get ahead of Aston Martin and Andretti. So it looks like Mercedes, McLaren and Audi Sport all very much locked together, almost with us. Red Bull has a tiny margin now back ahead of us, and then obviously that huge leap to Repsol Haas, which is also why it's important now. We've brought in about 5 upgrades on the reliability side. We now maybe need to, like I said, shift focus back and focus on those 2 ultimate downforce upgrades, because, well, if we don't make an upgrade now into the next episode, effectively I would assume McLaren, Mercedes and Audi Sport, they may overtake us on the R&D chart, and then all of a sudden we're back to like the 5th best team on the grid, whereas we were the best team for a few fleeting moments, you know, whilst we had all those engine failures basically, which kind of makes those engine failures seem even worse in the context of that. And like I was saying the whole time, we have to make the most of it. We have to make the most of it, and our engine failed us to the point where we didn't. You know, to quote Sebastian Vettel when he was ending his Red Bull career and, you know, in 2013 after that campaign, you have to remember those days when you got that performance, and, you know, we had to make use of it, and we didn't. And now all of a sudden we're back to 3rd best team on the grid because Red Bull have got back ahead of us. So, yeah, frustrating, but we can't do much about that. That's in the past, and we just try and make the most of the rest of the season and kind of carry some nice momentum from one Italian Grand Prix to the 2nd Italian Grand Prix of the season here at Imola. I love the fact we've coupled these Grand Prix together, a bit better in terms of geography, basically. So from Monza, we go to Imola, and a very wet Imola, as you can see. Full wet tyres for Q1, and it's going to be raining for this entire Friday, of course, because it's a sprint round weekend. So it's going to be raining all of this Friday. So I think we'll be on the full wets for all of these sessions. And then it should be a dry race for the sprint at least on Saturday. And then the rain may come back to us on this Sunday. So a bit of a topsy-turvy one this could be. Imola, it's a tricky one in the wet because there is no room for error. There are a few runoff areas, but there's equally also a lot of areas where the walls are quite close, the grass doesn't help things, the gravel traps don't help. You know, obviously on the old school circuits, a bit more thoroughbred, and that's what you get, a bit of an unforgiving circuit. So into Q2 then, we do make it through as a formality, but it won't be a formality to get through into the top 10 shootout, especially because now McLaren, Mercedes, and our sister team, Audi Sport, they are pretty much on top of us in terms of the R&D pure pace on paper, so we need to watch out for that. But I'm hoping myself and Sebastian can pull it out of the bag. We do get a much better lap in at the end of our running, but that's going to be very close by the end because others found even more pace in Q2. So me and Vettel can count ourselves lucky. We only just made it through. Tsunoda and the Red Bull got knocked out, so it's only one Red Bull featuring in the top 10. Both HAAS cars, both Mercedes, one McLaren, and then both Audi Sport Works cars have made it through. So, I don't know, Gasly really struggling as of late, or it's just Lando pulling that McLaren far further than the McLaren should get, and then clearly the upgrades have worked quite well for Audi Sport and Mercedes going into this race weekend for them to all 4 of them be in this shootout. So, speaking of, we make our way through. We count ourselves lucky that we just made it through by not going out at the end of Q2, and we have to make the most of it now and go out there and try and set the best lap time we can in the top 10 shootout. Now, the first lap for me wasn't that great. There was a bit of time on the table, I felt, in the last sector, and we gained about half a second to nearly 6/10 in that last sector to get up into P5. But Sebastian Vettel goes even better to split the HAAS cars and get on the front row in these challenging conditions. Very much channeling the Season 3 energy where he's just a couple of tenths ahead of me and I had no answer for it because I had no more pace in the car. But happy to get ahead of the McLaren at least, and just behind Albon, of course, one of our other championship rivals. The Mercs will probably be a bit annoyed at their performance because I kind of, you know, from Q2, I would have thought they would have got ahead at least, you know, one of, you know, Lando or Albon. So they'll be a little little bit annoyed with that, but, you know, the sprint race could change things. Obviously sets the grid for Sunday, so let's go to that sprint round on Saturday. A dry race, but a bit overcast it should be.
So it's all about speed in today's sprint. Not very many laps and no chance to get ahead on strategy. Who here today has the raw skill to take them to the top?
So quite thankful that this Saturday is going to be a dry affair, and I think we could probably finish higher than P5 and improve the grid slot. And of course, there are points awarded for this sprint race, so we can get ahead of Albon and even just finish there alone would be quite a positive, really, to get points over both him and Lando Norris, and then also get a higher grid slot. Didn't really mention it at the end of that qualifying, but it must be said, it might seem normal now. I think that's why I never mentioned it, but it is still amazing to see the fact that HAAS cars are casually here now in P1 on pole position for Drogovic and Schwartzman P3, and I'm actually impressed that Vettel managed to split them. I was impressed by that because I thought they were going to, you know, completely dominate this and get a front row lockout. Such is the pace that they seem to have now, with even further upgrades going to this race weekend. So it really is a new dynamic in Formula 1. Our new overlords are Repsol HAAS, but can anyone maybe take the fight to them today in the sprint round and then into Sunday? We're going to find out. But for me, I just want to improve on this position and try and get ahead of that Red Bull of Alexander Albon, the championship leader, and a man who's been one of our championship rivals for the last 2 seasons. As we go to 5 red lights, the sprint around Imola is underway. It's a great start for Schwartzman, who may look to try and make it a 1-2 for HAAS. We get absolutely cut off on the left-hand side by Albon, who swipes across us. We even make a bit of contact, it was, with him. Didn't really feel it in the cockpit, but Albon getting very aggressive to make sure he doesn't lose positions, and he's even attacking maybe Sebastian Vettel. And in all of that, because of the brake check from Albon having to lift off the throttle, Lando Norris has got ahead of us. So both our rivals ahead in P4 and 5, but it is a 1-2 for the Repsol HAAS team. Drogovic leading the way away from Schwartzman, and that is maybe the race pace showing through, and that may be the last that any of us see of the HAAS cars on this Saturday sprint. But Vettel will try his best, I'm sure, to keep up with him. Albon 4th, Lando 5th, myself 6th, Russell in a bit of a checkerboard with Sainz, and then Leclerc, his teammate, and then Tsunoda as well to get up into the top 10 after a poor qualifying on the Friday. But we know we have some good pace in a straight line. We saw that at Monza very clearly. We are running higher wings around here though, so that may give us a little bit of drag, but I'm still pretty confident of our overtaking ability to get back ahead of the McLaren and then hopefully go one better, then also get Alexander Albon. We've got 11 laps of this sprint, 10 to go now as we end lap 1. Fastest lap by Felipe Drogovic, and you've got to get used to that, I think, for the rest of this season, as those HAAS cars are already maybe pulling away a bit from Vettel as we go powering past Lando Norris, making it look pretty easy into turn 2. Such is the speed of our car, especially whilst we're deploying battery all the way down that straight. And now we set our sights on Albon, but he's doing quite well, you know, to close up and keep up with Sebastian Vettel. So definitely that upgrade for Red Bull working well, as they're technically ahead of us now, but once again in the R&D chart. And you can see, I mean, look at the visual gap from Vettel to Schwartzman. The HAAS truly look a bit scary, and they might be dark horses. I mean, I don't know. We've got enough races left potentially for maybe Drogovic to get in it, get amongst it, if he wants to go and dominate the rest of the season. Who knows, but we're going to try and get past Albon round the outside. He goes very defensive and blocks us off, and he would do, being the championship leader and everything at stake in this race weekend, in the sprint and Sunday. Does well. We just didn't have enough speed to fully get alongside him and feel comfortable to outbrake him, and I just knew he was going to go over the curb and take us wide anyway, so probably good I didn't commit to it round the outside, otherwise we probably would have been in the gravel trap. Meanwhile, you know, speaking of McLaren earlier and Lando doing so well in P6, what's happening to Pierre Gasly? Down in P13, I thought at the start of the season he was going to be the one taking McLaren to the top into the title fight, but it's Lando who's come through out of all of it, and Gasly as of late's been struggling for qualifying pace, for race pace as well. Yeah, very, very baffling, and you know, you hope he maybe bounces back next season. We saw that a few times on F1 2021 with the McLaren team. Like, one of the drivers would do well and the other one just wouldn't, and they would kind of yo-yo and swap which one it would be every season. So kind of looks like that same pattern's happening in this game, as we now cut back to our POV on the end of 4 onto lap 5, and this time we're a bit closer. We used all our battery on the last lap, and we're going to squeeze past tyre on the grass as Albon really wants to get the elbows out and test the limits of how committed we could be, but we are committed through that corner up into P4, and then Albon gets a bit of dirty air off ourselves, bit of a iffy front end, and now Lando Norris with a huge dive so late on the brakes, and the McLaren is going to force his way up into P5. This is brilliant stuff for the McLaren driver up ahead of Albon, so now the championship leader is behind both his nearest rivals, and he's going to try and re-overtake, but Lando remains firm on the defence. Some great driving there. I just spoke about, maybe he's dragging that McLaren up higher than it really should be. If you look at Gasly, and with moves like that, you'd probably say, yeah, maybe he's just feeling supreme confidence in that car of his. And meanwhile, in those, the bronze and white cars of the Repsol HAAS, they are looking insane. 3.5 gap after 5 seconds. Drogovic giving Schwartzman a bit of a tow with DRS, and basically they're going to use each other to just continue this all the way until the last lap of this sprint. Not much else happened in this sprint for myself or the drivers around us, and it's going to be a 1-2 in the sprint around Imola. Drogovic takes his, technically second win of the season, but it's a sprint win, and then a Grand Prix win from obviously the Belgian Grand Prix, but that's going to be very, very good news for them, because now they have a front row lockout for tomorrow's full Sunday Grand Prix. For us, we've done very well. Vettel did the most he could with the car he's got. He had no way to catch the HAAS cars, so he got the maximum P3. So we're going to lock out the second row at the Martini Audi AAR F1 team. But we did well as well individually, just to get ahead of Lando and Albon. So we're going to, not by a huge margin, but we are going to outscore both our rivals, close that gap down just a little bit more. Sunday's race is going to be probably a little bit messier and a bit more interesting, because we do have rain on the way. I've checked the weather forecast, so it looks like it's going to be heavy rain at the start and then ending in dry conditions. So we could be using all 3 types of compounds: the full wets, blue wall, the green wall intermediates, and then whatever dry tire we might want to use. We do have some softs obviously there, because we didn't run any of them on the Friday qualifying, so it could be a bit of a sprint race at the end on a set of soft tires. But from that performance, I don't really know if anyone's going to be able to match HAAS. They may just have a nailed on 1-2 at this point, but in the wet, that's when some mistakes creep in, and Vettel did very well in the wet on Friday. So kind of for his sake and for our team's sake, maybe he can do something. But for us, I'm happy. P4 on the grid, can't ask for too much more. Let's go to Sunday for the full Grand Prix.
Welcome once again to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari. The clue's in the name. This is very much Ferrari home turf, and the locals will be out in force today to support their team in what we hope will be a magnificent spectacle of motorsport. On then to the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Unlike most Formula One tracks, Imola is driven anti-clockwise and offers our drivers today just over 3 miles of glistening wet tarmac to negotiate. It's made up of a roughly equal split of 9 right-hand turns and 10 left-hand. Watch the drivers on the way into turn 16. Managing their speed there will be crucial, with the rain only adding to the difficulty of that downhill braking section, which then, of course, leads into the track's longest straight, though no DRS there today, of course. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Felipe Drugovich lines up on pole position, and Robert Schwartzman completes the front row. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have the owner driver, Norris, Alex Albon and Russell, Sainz, Leclerc, Verstappen and Pierre Gasly, Magnussen, Vettel, Fernando Alonso and Perez, Mick Schumacher, Stroll, Liam Lawson and Esteban Ocon, Tsunoda, Teo Pourchaire, Oscar Piastri. They've taken a grid penalty, and Valtteri Bottas begins the race from the back of the grid. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. Anthony Davidson, thanks for joining me once again for the Grand Prix. Now I want to ask you about Yuki Tsunoda. Looks like they have a tough race in store today, as grid penalties from changing power unit components has forced them further down the field.
But on the bright side, at least those fresh components can help them maintain the power they need to come through the pack. I expect to see them take a more aggressive approach today to make up for the compromised start.
even though some of the best F1 races are when conditions change from either dry to wet or wet to dry, I am a little bit worried about the performance at the start of this one. You know, we did okay in qualifying, but, you know, I just think with heavy fuel, this is going to be a very challenging first part of this race. And what makes it even more challenging for me as a lone car up here, because if you looked at the grid order, Sebastian Vettel, unfortunately, has had to take a engine penalty, so he's down in P12 today, and I am alongside Lando Norris now on the second row. So I don't even have someone to maybe back me up or, you know, give me a tow down these straights at the start of the race. So it's going to be just me versus my two rivals. I'm not really even thinking about the HAAS cars ahead of us because I reckon they'll have enough pace. Maybe on the opening lap, just maybe we'll get ahead of one of them, but it's going to be a very tough one, and I'm kind of going to be thankful when we get to intermediates, because then that's when maybe we can have a bit better pace, potentially. But it's going to be a very important run down into that turn 2 to try and stay ahead of Lando and Alexander Albon as we go to 5 red lights to the full Imola Grand Prix in some very wet conditions. We actually get initially a really good start, and then a massive tank slapper with the ERS deploying a bit too early potentially for us. Made some contact with Lando Norris. We're down all of a sudden to P6. The two silver arrows have got ahead. We've had to cut the curb and go across the gravel trap to make the corner, such was how wide we went. So it's a bit of a mare of a start for us. We've somehow actually stayed ahead of Albon though, who's behind me in P7. Gasly up to P8 now, and Vettel has just overtaken Carlos Sainz, or is going side by side with him to try and get him up into P9 and 10 respectively. But the two Mercs, really cracking start for them. They'll be very happy about that, so now they can show their true pace potentially. But there's now an early virtual safety car for whatever reason. Maybe some contact going on behind us that we've not seen yet. But that was, well, a bit of a calamity of a start, really. Initially, it was quite a good one. I actually thought, hang on a minute, could I actually get a jump on the HAAS cars? And then just a bit too much wheel spin as I started deploying ERS. And, a hefty bit of contact with Lando Norris's front left tyre, you know. He's actually quite lucky he's not got damage, and I'm lucky that I've not, you know, sustained any damage myself, and no penalty from that. And Lando Norris just skates through into P3, and there might be a good view of that from Albon's point of view. I think he must have just got blocked in behind us, I guess, which is unfortunate for him, but it was going well. And then there's the swerve and a massive right to left situation for me, and the two silver arrows get past us. Then Albon, trying to go down our inside, locks up. He locks up and he's hit Gasly. So I think Albon's got some damage there. He tried to go for a bit of a half-hearted move on myself and then just locked up, and only has himself to blame for going straight into the side of the Frenchman. And so we'll have to come in probably for damage for that front wing. So as we go through the last turn of lap 1, and just behind us there, that Red Bull, he's going to be coming in along with Gasly. That's a bit unfortunate for him because he was just a passenger in all of that. But it elevates Carlos Sainz then up to P7, Vettel P8. And so Vettel is a lot closer to me than I really thought he would be at this stage of the Grand Prix. The virtual safety car is now ending, and we try and settle down into a rhythm to try and chase after Leclerc first of all, then Russell, and then I'm hoping eventually Lando Norris. But it's going to be tough, and as you can clearly see by the rear end stepping out everywhere, I clearly don't have too much confidence right now in these conditions.
Okay, stand by. We see a problem our end, and we're looking into it.
No. Now, hold on, Mark. Hold your horses. Don't you dare tell me that, Mark, because there is only one thing that has come after that phrase eventually, Mark. There's only one thing. Oh, no. Are you actually being serious right now? Here at Austria, as soon as we talk about going for the win, we've got the pace, the confidence, the whole engine goes. 3 laps to go. We're chasing him down. And the engine's given out again! Ah, you cannot be real right now. And it is going to be a full-blown engine failure. Again! We just came off the back of 3 engine failures. Thankfully, last episode, it ended. We got a race win. We showed how good this car can be. It's simply not possible. 4 engine failures in a single My Team career mode season. It's unheard of. And yet, it's happening. It's happened. Oh!
To retire as soon as possible.
Our engine's gone. Our engine's gone for the 4th time this season. We're going to have to park it up and call it quits early. Lap 2 of the full Imola Grand Prix. In a race where Audi brought new upgrades to make the engine even quicker. I can't. This is actually not in the plan. A lot of you think that I've somehow modded these engine failures, or that is somehow all none of this is planned. I didn't plan for anything. I wanted a really dominant season. I wanted a season where it was me and my teammate going toe to toe, dominating, flexing the muscle of an Audi engine. And this has turned into a completely different storyline than I thought this season would be. And it's a different component again. It's a different one. The entire engine is slowly getting infected with these gremlins. We had 2 MGUKs gone, then the energy store, then we had nothing for Monza, and now our MGUH has failed us. And that's a fresh one that we just got in the last episode or two. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
What a fantastic Grand Prix that was, and an excellent win for the HAAS team. So, Anthony, what made the difference out there today?
Rain always has the potential to liven up a race and mix up the order, and they've taken full advantage of that to claim the victory today. It's always a bit of a lottery when the conditions are like this, but they've managed to stay on circuit and have come out on top.
Today was another great race and an even greater victory for HAAS. Here they come now to step out onto the top of the podium. They'll be incredibly happy with today's results.
And just like at the Belgium Grand Prix, as I had an engine failure, Felipe Drugovich is able to secure a Formula 1 win. It's his 2nd full Grand Prix win, and it means he's completely won the entire Imola GP. The pole position, the sprint win, and the full Grand Prix win. He is the master of Imola today. And just like in that race, Sebastian Vettel is able to get a great podium from, remember, behind us in P8 with that grid penalty. He's done amazingly then in a race that we didn't get to see the rest of to get 2nd place. And Lando Norris does amazingly in a kind of slightly inferior McLaren to get 3rd place ahead of Albon, who of course had the damage anyway. So that damage was done anyway when he crashed into Lando's teammate Pierre Gasly. But wow, insane set of results then. And it's a bit of a shame, you know, you can't see these races after you retire. Would have been great to, because Robert Schwartzman unfortunately faced a very unlucky race as well. Like in Austria when I had a DNF there and a HAAS failed, that time it was Drugovich. This time Schwartzman's the HAAS that DNFs with me, because he also had an engine failure at some point. So not quite the fantasy 1-2 for Repsol HAAS today, but it is another win for Drugovich and another solid podium for Vettel, which will mean some very interesting results now in the Drivers' Championship, because now Lando Norris leads the way by 7 points to Albon, then a further 6 back is myself, and then Sebastian Vettel all of a sudden is P4 in the championship, 26 points off Lando Norris, and Drugovich is in P5, 30 points off Lando Norris, and in a very, very quick Repsol HAAS car. Could we be seeing this 3-way championship? It has looked like Norris, Albon, myself the whole time. Could it be turning into including Vettel and Drugovich, potentially? Who knows? Who knows? But at this rate, I might not even be in the top 3 by the end of the season, because every time something good happens with our car and we're getting quicker, yeah, we even get a win at Monza, and then the F1 gods want to crash me back down to earth with a 4th DNF engine failure of the season. A naturally occurring engine failure that the game decides for you, and you can't do anything. No matter how many times you restart this race, you're getting that engine failure. So it's just one of those things. You know, we've had our fair share of a lot of luck over the game, this game, and previous games over the years on F1 games in career mode. So maybe now all that good luck is being balanced out by one season of torrid luck here in Season 4 of My Team Career Mode on F1 22. I simply don't have words. Even after bringing reliability upgrades, we've not been able to... We're going to have to bring more now, even though we just spent a lot of R&D points on some aero upgrades. We're going to have to now try and look into some more reliability upgrades, which will in turn make our car... Well, will compromise our car and not allow us to bring further performance updates, and that may mean that our car gets slower and might be reliable, and might still go pop. It still might go pop, so who knows? Who knows? This is not what I thought Imola would end like, but it has. Guys, if you have enjoyed the episode, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I have one question for you. Do you reckon we've still got another engine failure in this one? And do you reckon we could still somehow be in this title fight by the end of it, if that was to happen? Because I'm really not sure anymore. I'm really not sure. But till next one, guys, goodbye. Mark, I swear to God, if you come up with that same team radio one more time in the remainder of this season, I'm coming to find you personally and replace you with Jeff. I'll do it. I know how. I'll do it.